companies, organizations and stakeholders who are doing remarkably well in the technology space. Such included the Korea Electronics Technology Institute and Crypto Lab Inc. He further had a meeting with the National Information Society Agency and also deliberations with the Vice President of Globalization, who is also the Professor of Public Policy at Kumin University, Dr. Wang Jun Kim. President Masisi, through such interactions, seeks to create space for Botswana's potential to be seen and heard, as well as to create opportunities for partnerships which would be essential in driving the reset agenda priorities, which prompt a collective mindset shift and promote digitalization towards a knowledge-based economy. Coming back home, the Rural Development Council is set to recommend drought relief measures and interventions to government following a report on the Botswana vulnerability assessment conducted countrywide during the months of April to May this year. Speaking at the 165th RDC meeting, the acting president, Mr. Slamba Tsuhwane, who is also the chairperson of the council, said the findings of the report indicate that 2023-2024 is an extreme drought year, hence the need to redouble efforts and pace of rolling out new programs and initiatives, which include the Moletlotlo, Tuoletlotlo and Chema Chema, as they are key to uplifting people's livelihoods as well as mitigating effects of drought. Reports.
This Rural Development Council meeting convened to consider the Botswana Vulnerability Assessment Report to appreciate progress made in the implementation of approved drought relief measures for the 2022-2023 season, which ends this month, as well as to agree on appropriate interventions to be put in place to mitigate this year's extreme drought. This meeting interrogates the assessment that intended to establish the current levels of human vulnerability countrywide, as the extreme weather conditions characterized by limited rainfall and high temperatures posing threats to agriculture, ecosystems and food security in the country.
Re temogetse gone gore assessment e supile yalo gore mo mahelo ma mangwe go nna le mopamo mo baneng, so re buseditse tsone tseo tsa dithuso tsa bana tsa dijo go sekolong go oketsa dinako tse ba di jang le bana ba ba go tlase ga dingwaga tsa bo 5 years go bona gore ba ka thusiwa ka dijo go ditleliniking. Go tanga gare ga diphologolo le batho le gone re itemogela gore ga go le leuba thata ya oketsega ka gore diphologolo tse dingwe tse ditona tse di tshwana bo ditlou di tabe di tsamaya gongwe le gongwe di bata metsi di ya mo mahelong a e le gore batho ba mo go one, mme ebile re supile yalo gore go nne le go bona gore re ka dira jang go bona gore mahelo mangwe di ka epelwa metsi jaaka rate re dire.
Poverty eradication program e re ranang le Ministry of State President e leng gore the implementation is actually monitored by maphata a bidiwang ke social and community development departments a nameng le dikgaolo tsotlhe tsa rona tse di bidiwang ke di-councils kana local authorities. Maphata ana ba na le groups and individuals ba ba berekang le bone ba ba na di-business, especially business that are doing poverty eradication, currently Chema.
Currently, the agricultural sector is severely affected as the expected yield of cereal production is 6% across the whole country. However, the Minister of Agriculture says the newly launched the Moletlotlo and Tuoletlotlo initiatives are a beacon of hope for farmers during this drought era.
And the yield ita oketsega kana ita tokagala mo go yone Moletlotlo re tsentse tsetlana ya gore ba ba nang le metsi ba ka hiwa dithuso tsa go nosetsa. Water development ke nngwe ya ditsetlana tse di mo lenaneong le leshala Tuoletlotlo gore batho ba thusiwe go epa didiba le go di gokela and reticulate le gone go nosetsa e ba kgona go lemela leruo jalo se re dumelang gore in the long run se ta kgona go lwantshana le ditlhwatlhwa tse re di bonang mo mmarakeng.
Furthermore, the acting president noted that collaborative work by government, private sector and development partners is required to manage drought with efforts that would positively influence people's livelihoods, promote food security and continue supporting government efforts of keeping the import bill low. Tlotla Matlabaphiri, BTV News, Gaborone.
The chairperson of Botswana's Green Finance Mainstreaming Working Group, Mr. Joshua Sibonge, says it is crucial to align the country's financial system in a way that would ensure sustainable growth, especially at a time when climate change and biodiversity laws are existing crises. Mr. Sibonge shared this at the inaugural Green Finance Mainstreaming Working Group in Gaborone, which was convened to map out strategies to help the country's financial system achieve this very objective.
Botswana, like the world at large, faces the threat of climate change and through it accelerated biodiversity loss, which is why it has accepted the assistance of the United Nations Development Programme's Biodiversity Finance Initiative, BioFin. To leverage the initiative's resources, Botswana has formed a Green Finance Mainstreaming Working Group to discuss funding of green initiatives by government and the private sector.
Our mission is clear and focused: to mainstream green finance, making it an integral part of our financial institutions, policies, and practices. This means not only recognizing the risks associated with environmental degradation, but also seizing the opportunities that arise from sustainable investments.
The necessary financial resources need to be mobilized to support the transition to a low-carbon, climate-resilience economy. This requires robust policy framework, innovative financial instruments, and unwavering commitment from all stakeholders.
Mr. Sibonge highlighted the agenda of his working group.
Our agenda for today is ambitious, and rightly so. We are going to discuss the working group terms of reference, the Botswana nature-related financial disclosure readiness, and the institutional review study, which comprises an assessment of institutional, policy, and regulatory readiness for disclosure of nature-related finance and risks.
Understanding nature-related impacts, dependencies, risks, and opportunities across portfolios of assets and economic value chains is essential for making investment and lending decisions that protect, restore, and sustainably use biodiversity. This is why we are working on our readiness in terms of the nature-related financial disclosure and institutional capacities and mandates, which will be discussed in detail during this meeting.
The government has expressed its eagerness to see the recommendations that will emerge from the 3-day meeting, which could be included in its planning for the upcoming National Development Plan, NDP 12. Solofala Tombale, BTV News, Gaborone.
In other news, the Minister of Transport and Public Works, Mr. Eric Molale, says affirmative action should not only be a mandate of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, but ought to be a role all ministries take up in order to drive government ideals of inclusivity. Mr. Molale was speaking in East Hanahai during the launch of training of youth on operating heavy machinery in rural areas.
Affirmative action e puso e sa ulo go bua ka yona.
We have to ensure we drive this affirmative action policy as a collective, and this should encompass every ministry. This is also where the issue of decentralization comes into play. Additionally, it also cements the reason behind upgrading of councils so that services can be brought closer to the people, even those in the remotest of areas. We must walk and live the talk. Every ministry has to play its role in improving the lives of those who live in remote, less developed areas.
Yeah, no, we must walk the talk and live the talk. Le pata lengwe le lengwe le tshwantse go nna le seabe bo go tokahatseng matshelo a batho ba ba nnang kgakala le ditlamelo.
Local government.
As local government, we are committing to upholding the ideals of the affirmative action policy and promise that we will lobby our departments to always hit the ground running and assist those who need help. At the end of the day, when we speak of developments, we are also speaking to human development, where every Botswana lives a life of dignity, with all their needs attended to.
The Assistant Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Mr. Sethabelo Mudukanele, says quality infrastructure remains the most critical requirement for attaining faster growth in a highly competitive global space and also ensuring investment for local community economies. This was said at the Infrastructure Development Sector Retreat in Sorowe. Horata Morangani reports.
In today's globalized world, quality infrastructure is more than just a backbone for daily operations. It is a catalyst for trade and local investment, driving economic growth and improving living standards.
The growing needs of our people in the delivery of services and projects have been fraught with implementation challenges, as I've noted, was availability of process, but rather ineptitude on the part of implementers, leading to delays and substandard execution of projects despite considerable amount of investment in infrastructure development. As I've noted before, a major impact of good infrastructure is felt by an ordinary Motswana. A good example is provision of classrooms to provide conducive learning and teaching environment for posterity. As highly trained professionals and undoubtedly good products of Botswana's investment in human capital, we are catalysts and drivers of rural and urban development through the provision of good quality infrastructure, which remains the most critical physical requirement for attaining faster growth in a highly competitive global space and also for ensuring investment in our economies.
Participants were encouraged to embrace and adopt new priorities and methods to ensure that every project is completed well in time.
On behalf of our team here, Minister, we want to commit ourselves. Having stayed 3 days here, our weaknesses, we have committed ourselves who will improve our performance.
The minister further implored them to adhere to the long-standing principles and value of accountability, good governance and ethical conduct. Horata Morangani, BTV News.
Liza Osakeng is standing by to give us the latest in sport. Liza?
Jumela Moso, how are you?
I'm well, ma'am. How are you?
I'm very well, Lynn.
Okay, ma'am.
Should I?
Please.
Thank you so much, Khomozo Mapani. Good evening. I am Liza Osakeng with your World of Sport, and in our first story, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Library, Archives, Arts and Culture at the Ministry of Youth, Gender, Sport and Culture, Tebogo Matebesi, says the government of Botswana is committed to creating inclusive, cohesive and accessible societies as evidenced by the National Sport Development Plan. Matebesi highlighted this at the African Union Sports Council AUSC Region 5 2024 Sport for People with Disabilities Conference, themed Inclusion Revolutionary in Gaborone. Segofatso Badubi has the report.
Matebesi said Botswana prides itself as an inclusive nation that provides equitable access to resources and opportunities to vulnerable sections of communities, especially girls, women and persons with disabilities.
As such, this conference resonates well with Botswana's national development priorities. Under the Botswana Vision 2036, Achieving Prosperity for All, social inclusion and equality is a key priority area. It aims at captivating people to have a voice in decisions that affect their lives. Under Vision 2036, people living with disabilities and elderly will have equal access to services and socio-economic opportunities. Policies, programs, and laws are also being reviewed to accommodate the needs and interests of people living with disabilities.
During the first Sport for People with Disabilities SPWD conference held in Malawi in 2015, a set of resolutions called Lilongwe Declaration were produced along a regional SPWD action plan. According to Vice Chairperson of the Association of National Olympic Committee Zone 6, Admaya Masenda, research has shown that there is still more that needs to be done.
This conference is a landmark for our region, and it is a chance for us to come together and share our experience and chart a clear course for the future of sport for people with disabilities in the AUSC region. The issues we will deliberate on are the challenges faced by athletes with disabilities, the opportunities sport presents for inclusion, the strategies to achieve gender equity, are all crucial in ensuring people in our region have a chance to participate and excel in sport.
Inclusion is not only about the right to participate in activity, but also the right to be included in decision making. States and sports organizations that embrace human rights should include measurable targets and assessments of their progress in achieving disability rights. We will, during this conference, know more about the situation in the region. Our work should be fact-based and knowledge-driven. So having this data is so important when we turn our eyes towards policies and action plans.
The conference, which marks the first effort to evaluate performance of member countries in attaining targets set out in the Regional Action Plan and to address other key emerging issues that continue to impact negatively against progress towards a more inclusive sport for people with disabilities, attracted over 60 participants from AUSC Region 5 member countries. Tsegofatso Badrubi, BTV Sport, Gaborone.
Meanwhile, various stakeholders attending the African Union Sports Council AUSC Region 5 2024 Sport for People with Disabilities Conference said they are hopeful that at the end of the three-day conference, they will be able to mitigate numerous barriers that impede participation of people with disabilities in physical activity and sport.
So I am expecting that we'll be updated on what has been achieved thus far in the Region 5. What is the plan going forward? I think until 2028, what is expected to be done, and also looking forward to the various declarations that will be made, the commitments that will be made going forward from this. To be honest, we've come a long way, so there have been changes, but a lot more work needs to be done. Yeah, efforts are being made to include us in decision making, but more can be done. And I expect that this meeting will elucidate on that.
And I'm very interested in learning here about how people with disabilities can be included in different sports activities and how they can develop and to be able to be fully inclusive. So yeah, we want to focus on people of different disabilities, because most of the time when we just hear about, when we refer to people with disabilities, it's mainly people who have physical disabilities. But what about the deaf? What about the blind? So my expectation is that all these groups are included.
And finally, Botswana national women's tennis team departed for Kenya yesterday to compete in the Billie Jean Cup Group 3. The tournament will take place from the 10th to the 15th of June in the capital city, Nairobi. Bame Lekoma.
Botswana has previously competed in the Billie Jean Cup twice, first in Macedonia and then in Kenya, finishing in 8th position in Kenya. However, this year, the team is optimistic about breaking into the top 4. This renewed confidence stems from the inclusion of all their top-ranked players, a significant change from last year when one of their key players was absent.
Like right now we're leaving so that we can have a training camp in Kenya before the tournament, because some they're in the US, some they're in Botswana, so it's difficult to work with them when there's others who are away. Like last year, we didn't have one of our strong players, so I think this year maybe we might make it top 4.
The team includes 2 players based in the United States who play college tennis, consistently competing against top talent. Additionally, Chelsea Chakunyaka, a player who has been actively competing in International Tennis Federation tournaments, will bring valuable experience.
Yes, it's a young team that it's doing really well, and I believe in the team. I think we will do well. Yes.
One of their strongest players, who also serves as a junior coach, is expected to provide strategic insights and guidance to the team. In preparation for the tournament, the team will undergo an intensive training camp in Kenya. This camp will be crucial in sharpening their skills and strategies ahead of the competition.
Because I've been playing way more tournaments this year, I think it really helped with the way I play, change my game style, and I think it will really help me improve in the way I'm going to play in Kenya. And plus, we're going there a week before, so we'll get more time to get used to the court, the weather, the everything, and that will help with the tournament.
16 countries will participate in this year's tournament, with participants selected based on their rankings. Bamile Goma, BTV Sport, Gaborone.
And that is it for sport this evening. Khomoso Mapani is standing by to give us a reminder of our top stories. Maiso, let us do this again tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Liza. I'm just curious about Billie Jean.
Yeah.
And the tournament itself, and of course the Michael Jackson song, Billie Jean. I'm wondering whether there's a correlation there.
Yeah, I get you there.
Thank you so much, Liza. Let's meet again tomorrow, ma'am.
Of course, Maiso.
That was Liza Osaking giving us the latest in sport. And let's take a final look at stories later in the week this evening. President Dr. Mokgweetsi Masisi says industrialization is a key driver for Africa's economic development. Government ministries urge to drive affirmative action to promote social inclusion. And in sport, national women's tennis team set to compete in the Billie Jean Cup tournament in Kenya. That's all we had for you this evening in our news bulletin. Up next is the weather update.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's weather forecast brought to you by Samuel Ramotonto. The current satellite picture shows clear skies over the entire country. As for tomorrow, we're expecting a few patches of clouds visible over Ngamile and Khanti and Kalahari, while over other areas of the country, we're expecting only clear skies. Fresh to strong winds are also expected tomorrow over most areas of the country, more especially over the southern and eastern parts of the country. Therefore, the public is advised to take necessary precautions. In the morning, very cold temperatures are expected over Khanti, Kalahari, southern, southeast, and northeast, with a minimum of -1 at Francistown and 1 degree Celsius over most areas. And over Kweni and Central, we're expecting cold temperatures with the minimums ranging from 3 to 5 degrees Celsius, while over Chobe and Ngamiland, we're expecting mild temperatures with the minimums ranging from 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. In the afternoon, cold temperatures are expected over Ganzi, Kalahari, and Southern, with the maximums ranging from 17 to 21 degrees Celsius. But over Southeast, Khatli and Kweni, we're expecting mild temperatures with the maximums of 25 degrees Celsius over most areas. Over Central, Northeast, Chobe, and Ngamiland, we're expecting hot temperatures in the afternoon with the maximums ranging from 31 to about 33 degrees Celsius. Now, as for some cities in Africa, showers are expected over Antananarivo, Port Elizabeth, and Cape Town, while at Windhoek, we're expecting clear skies and partly cloudy conditions over Luanda, Nairobi, and Dar es Salaam. Partly cloudy conditions are also expected over Addis Ababa, Khartoum, N'Djamena, and Rabat, while at Monrovia, we're expecting some thunder showers and clear skies are expected over Tripolis and Cairo. That's the weather forecast. Have yourself a good night.
Coming up in this edition of Eye on SADC, President Bumba appeals to eligible Namibians to register. Malawi's VP optimistic about